Thanks for tuning in this week as we take you through the nitty-gritty on how to service the Carby on your outboard.
One full turn.
One full turn.
If you tuned in last week, you will have found us exploring the reef around Michaelmas Cay. We then tootled off to Apollo Reef, where we got on with some boat chores under supervision from this guy. Okay, so we're back in Cairns after a beautiful few days out at the reef. I hope you really enjoyed it out there as much as we did. It was magic. And yeah, McDazzle was out on the back deck and he's pulling apart the old Yamaha. So if you remember, about a week or so ago I had to go and rescue him down the old creek as the Yamaha had given out on him. So he's just doing a full service on it to check out what's going on. And we thought we'd take you through how to service a carburettor. So yeah, important one to know. If you don't know what a carburettor does, it controls the air and fuel ratio for your outboard engine. So yeah, it's a really easy one to fix, and it can often give some people a lot of trouble. So we'll take you through a detailed vid on how to get that serviced yourself. Okay, so let's pop up on the back deck and check out where McDazzle's up to. Tell us about it, my honey. What are you up to?
We had a little fail on the outboard, and funny enough, we were doing a service on the other outboard, so we put our trusty little Yamaha on and never fail, but it failed. So I'm just trying to find out what's wrong with it. So far, I've tipped the fuel out of the fuel tank, because normally water's the first thing to look for with these things. The water goes to the bottom of the tank, and that's where the pickup is, and of course it ends up in our little Carby bowl, which the fuel sucks from the bottom of this bowl and into the main jet, and therefore just stops the engine. Anyway, I tipped the fuel out and I didn't find any water in there, so the next scenario is to pull the Carby apart, and because I do know it's fuel, it'll idle, but that's all it'll do. So I'm not sure whether there's a tiny little bit of corrosion in there that's gotten away and it's blocked something up, but I'm about to find out. The Carby sits in there like that, and there's a couple of bolts that hold it on the front, and the fuel line and the choke and the accelerator cables that hook onto that. But I pretty much had that out of there in probably less than 10 minutes, so it's pretty easy to get them out. And most of these Carbys are pretty much the same on the Yamahas and the Mercs, and all the other ones they're all sort of similar. Anyway, I'll rip the bowl off this and see where we're at. Yeah, you just take the screws out. There's 4 screws in this particular application. That should just come off like so. Okay, so that's the inside of the fuel bowl, and that little piece there where my thumb is the main jet. So the fuel gets sucked out of the bottom of this section here and into the engine. But you can see there are a couple of spots of dirt in there, which are enough to block the Carby, because these jets are so fine. You know, you really flat out you can't stick a needle through them, they're that fine. So that probably is the problem.
If there were water in there, what would it look like?
If there was water in there, it'd be really obvious, because fuel floats on top of the water. It's almost like a bubble underneath the fuel. When you look at it, you can slosh it around and you'll see it rolling around separate to the water. So if you've got water in there, there's your problem. But you also do need to take the jets out, and I'll do that anyway. So this little guy here, he's our float, and he controls the fuel that goes into the bowl. He gets the right height for the fuel, and he just pushes on. There's a little float needle in there, and it stops the fuel as that height comes up. It shuts the fuel off to the correct level. So that's what that little guy does. Anyway, we'll pull the jets out. So this is our main jet that controls your higher speed RPM, or the amount of fuel that goes in it. And I can see there's actually nothing in that guy. And there's also another one in here. It's the idle jet, which controls our low RPM, but the holes in these are very, very fine. The best thing you can do sometimes is actually just blow through them. It certainly doesn't taste very good. So the other thing that a lot of people tend to miss is that that guy goes, that's the main jet, and the fuel gets sucked up through there, and that goes into the throat of the Carby. So you may be able to see that was in there like so, and that sort of sits up in there like that, and this little guy has got a series of little galleries in it as well. So just make sure that's clear. Sometimes you'll get like a bead of water or some foreign matter sitting on those guys. So, but just be aware that it can only go in and out one way, so don't try and put it in the wrong way. It can easily be stuck in backwards and probably wouldn't be quite as effective. There's just a little series of galleries under this little plate. I don't expect to find anything too much under here, but sometimes you'll get a little bead of moisture.
So just take those flaps off really carefully.
You can just see there's a couple of galleries in there that I'll blow them out with the compressor, but they look pretty clean. That's that one.
And just take the next cover off very carefully.
There's two little galleries down there, and one of them's got a tiny little fragment in there.
So that might have been it. That silver bit there.
Yeah, it could be. It certainly wouldn't be helping the scenario. Sometimes you'll get a tiny bit of moisture sitting in under there.
Yeah.
And it only takes like a bead of water to upset things, because these little galleries in there are so small.
Okay.
That a bead of water can easily block them. Now this guy here, he's the air mixture. Now this little fellow here, he's actually in a preset position. You can adjust him, but what I tend to do is I count. I'll wind him all the way in and find out how far he goes from that position. So he might be, that's half one turn. So when I take this guy out, that was the position he was in. So now I can safely take him all the way out.
That's a good tip, my honey.
Yeah.
Because that's the big part of controlling the mixture in the engine.
Yeah.
See that pinhole? That's the gallery that controls the airflow. So this is a little Stanley tool set. It's a very fine kit of screwdrivers. It's really handy to have on board, and there's all sorts of Phillips and flatheads, but as you can see they're really fine, so it's a really good kit to have for jobs such as doing your carby, doing a bit of dentistry work. These are the tools you require. Getting something out of your nostrils or your eyes. I'd probably choose something a little gentler. So there's Darren just fetching our air compressor. Beauty, Mick!
A quick blow through the galleries by mouth will usually clear them. However, we carry a small compressor on board which does a much better job. Here Darren is blowing out the jets and galleries to ensure no specks of dirt or rust could be lurking about. Basically just give every port a blast to clear them.
Anyway, that should be it. That's a real handy little tool, that. Not very expensive as well, so you wish you had it if you got some outboard problems. It just it takes the guesswork out of it. You know it's right then.
Be sure you give the ports in the bowl a good blowout also. Better not make this mess though.
The little O-ring there, that black ring just around there, you can change that out, but they pretty rarely give any problems. You can actually see if they've been leaking fuel, but in this case we're not going to change it.
How would you see tell if it was leaking fuel?
You'd probably see a bit of a fuel stain down the outside of the bowl.
Yeah.
The other thing that you may want to do, and most outboards have only got this tiny little fuel filter that's worth changing out.
For a bigger bulb, or an inline, better inline.
Well, that's never been changed out, but normally what happens on this, what we do with this, we actually just cut the line, and that's just basically it's an automotive filter. We just put in the line and a couple of cable ties on there, and
Bob's your uncle.
Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, you just get a smaller version for the outboard. Well,
that's probably a Yamaha one, but you can get aftermarket ones as well. But these things are just an aftermarket thing that you'd get at any auto store for a couple of bucks, and I find they work really well. And you can actually see if you're starting to get any water in the filter.
Yep.
You can actually see a distinct line in there, so that'll be the first sign of that you're getting water in your fuel system and you need to clean the tank out.
Yeah. Okay.
Another little tip.
Good tip there, my honey.
Anyway, we'll stick this one back together and she should be good to go. Yeah, so just put it back together in pretty much reverse of what you've taken apart. So if you're not sure about anything and you're having a crack at this for your first time, just take a lot of photos with your camera or your phone, and that'll give you a little bit of a reference of you know, where you probably need to be. There is usually a little rubber plug that goes over the top of these, the idle jet. It seems to be quite common in all these outboard carburetors. Take that in there. So as I've done it before, I just wound it right in.
One full turn.
One full turn. And you can adjust that a little bit either way if the outboard's not running right, and you might get a bit of a win. People may ask what this little bit of red wire is. That's the throttle return spring. The spring, it wasn't quite closing the throttle down properly, so I just put this bit of wire in there to help bring the throttle back to the stopper a little bit better. Anyway, that's what that little gizmo is. Now you can pretty much see how quickly that went back together. You know, there's really not much in these little guys. It took me longer to set the compressor up than it did to get the carby apart. So that should be pretty much good to go back in.
Okay, so why didn't you clean out the fuel pump, babe?
Well,
what's what makes you think there's not a tiny speck of gunk in there, if there was in the bowl?
Well, you get all your flow going through there, so once it gets into the bowl, it sort of, there's no flow. This is the river, and that's the billabong, if you like.
Yeah. So
there's no flow in there, so any dirt or any stuff it's either going to settle in there, or it'll settle in the bottom of that filter.
Oh, okay, that kind of makes sense.
If you know what I mean. Yeah. So I pulled this apart before Maggie got around to filming it. So we're just going to put it back in sequence. That's our carby gasket. Just make sure that's okay. There's no, it's not cracked or anything. Otherwise, that'll create all sorts of chaos with the running of the engine. There is a front and a back to these guys, so just make sure you put it back in the correct way. You'll find it won't. It'll actually bolt up either way, except that nothing will line up. All your throttle and everything would be on the wrong side, so just make sure he goes in the right way.
Darren replaces the airbox, then tightens up the screws that hold the carby in place.
There's two of these long bolts, and they virtually just hold the carby in position.
Remember that they don't require much pressure, as they're just bolting onto aluminium. Some tight will do.
This is our throttle control here.
You just attach the little clip to the stainless control elbow. And the screwdriver is an easy way to get that to clip on.
So with the throttle hooked up and working, Darren clips it on to the choke lever.
Just give that a little push to get that guy to hook on.
He then replaces the front panel and reconnects the fuel line.
So the fuel line's gone back on to the intake, which comes from the tank that Darren was showing you earlier. So the fuel line goes around here through the filter into the fuel pump, and then down and through the carby, which is underneath there. That's how that works. Rightio, my love. What now? What now?
We'll whack the cover back on and she should be good to go.
We're going to do a little test drive a bit later after lunch.
Yeah, we'll be a bit later. We might do a test on it. And, but if you're parking these outboards up long term, you should drain the fuel out of them, or just while they're still in the water, just pull the fuel line off them or switch the fuel off and run the fuel completely out of them, because long term the fuel will evaporate and it'll leave an oil residue behind, and next time you go to start it up, that oil will go, it'll turn into a gel. It won't actually remix with the fuel, and then you'll have to go through that process, exactly that, to clean the carby out and kickstart them again. So yeah, there's another little tip: drain the fuel out. Anyway, that's how you do a carby and for a Yamaha outboard. So I hope that helps you out.
Good on you, babe. High five. You're a champion.
Okay, so thanks so much for watching. We hope you got some good takeaways from that video.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts.
Drop a line in the comments, and remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell on the top right so that YouTube will notify you of our next video.
Okay.
Yeah, and also just a reminder to get your photos in for our competition for our Wall of Fabulous Followers. So yeah, we're going to draw that competition, and you'll get a chance to win a piece of Sarean. Yeah, get your photos into our email, planetsarian@gmail.com, or send us a line to our Facebook page.
Yeah, be in it, got to be in it to win it.
Yeah. Big thank you to all of you for supporting our channel, and a huge heartfelt thank you to our patrons for your continued support. We couldn't put these videos out without you.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're interested in checking out what goodies we've got for you and getting in for your chance to come on board Sarean, check out our Patreon page.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's about it for now. We shall catch you next week. Have a great week, everyone.
Okay, see you next week.